So just as I did in session 2, we're going to go through and give you a wide variety of different options for active releasing. Because again, when you're on the left side of the model, you're basically engaged in a match it up type of game. So let's start with one that is perhaps the most common one, and that's set it and forget it. It's the example I gave you a minute ago where I said visualize the car and imbue it with emotion and now never think about it again until it happens. So it's the idea that you release once. It's reflected in our culture. For instance, in different religions, you might say amen or so be it at the end of a prayer. That's the idea. It's the closing. It's okay. Now it's turned over. It's in God's hands, or it's in the universe's hands, or whatever your particular spiritual or religious beliefs are. So it's placing a strong closing intent that what you want to have occur, it's already done. It's already on the way. You can put it out of your mind. There's no reason to think about it again. A lot of people find this works very, very well for them. It surprises me a little bit because I find that, I'm not very skilled at just simply putting something that I really, really want out of my mind. But it turns out that my research has shown me that there's quite a percentage of the population that can actually do this without any problem. To some extent, it does relate to how religious someone is and whether or not they feel like they can just turn it over to God, to just turn it over to the universe, or to turn it over to whatever their spiritual or religious system dictates. Now, there are other versions where your expectations can remain after you've worked the formula, but you still know it's on the way. In other words, you don't have to totally put it out of your mind. You know it's coming. You know it's on the way. It's in your mind, but it's in your mind as something that's already happened. So I'm leading off with this particular graphic because I must say my research has shown me that this is an incredibly powerful and effective way that many, many people use to make these techniques work more effectively for them. So let's talk about some others. Another one is forced release. The idea here is that you stretch yourself. You really have no idea how you're going to accomplish that goal. It's so far beyond what you can imagine. So it's the idea of Ted Turner's dad telling him to set goals that he can't possibly achieve in his lifetime. There's no way to visualize how to how to actually achieve that goal. You're forced to release on it. Your mind simply can't plot a course to it. Let me give you another, I've always sort of considered dangerous, but nonetheless example. There's a very successful financier that I'm aware of, and he has used a technique throughout the course of his life that has always stretched him to the next level. So, for instance, he bought a Rolls Royce long before he could afford the Rolls Royce. What it did for him was basically put him in a situation where he didn't have any idea how he was going to pay for something, but he had to make it happen. So that's another example of forced release. And over time, I found quite a few people who have gotten that to work for them. But I want to caution you because I've also found quite a few people that it was absolutely disastrous for. So sometimes you'll read a book and they'll actually recommend something like that. And I just want you to be very, very aware of the fact that yes, it does work for some people, but there are absolutely people out there that have, been financially ruined by trying to go that route. Now, it doesn't have to be financial, of course. You can try this in the sense of Ted Turner, right? Which is to simply set a goal that you just can't possibly imagine how you're going to accomplish. You're forced to release on it. Another interesting one is forgetting. So you create a list of goals, but you forget all about it. And later, maybe you find the list of goals, and it turns out that a whole bunch of them have been achieved. Well, there are some very, very popular people that are advocating this in the law of attraction space. And certainly, I've seen it in my own research participants. Part of me wonders if this is a safety mechanism. What I mean by that is we're constantly thinking about what we want. It's very, very difficult for a lot of us to simply put things that we want out of our mind. Now, we can reframe them and say, well, I'm thinking about what I want, but it's been turned over to God, or it's been turned over to the universe, and it's on its way to me. There's still people out there, for sure, that ruminate, that think about these things, and think about them in negative ways. Well, that's dangerous in the sense that, you can attract negative just as much as you can attract positive. So I've always sort of wondered if the people that I've seen in my research groups that have had this forgetting work for them, if it's not a sort of a possible safety mechanism that's going on here. They've forgotten all about these goals. It's a year or 2 or 5 in some cases, at least among my examples, among my research population. Since they've thought about these goals, and they later are rummaging through a drawer and they find their list of goals, and lo and behold, a bunch of them have come to pass. And because they forgot all about them, they didn't get a chance to dwell on them in any negative ways, right? So it's an interesting form of release, just simply forgetting.